County commissioners suspected of being involved in the kickback scandal have only two choices. One, they can plead guilty and resign from office, or two, they can let a federal grand jury here at the federal building decide whether they should be indicted. The U.S. attorney says he can't talk specifically about any particular case being considered by the jury. However, David Russell points out that only 12 of more than 100 commissioners have actually been indicted. All the rest have pled guilty.
Right, I can't discuss any individual case. The grand jury proceedings in the federal system are secret, and what goes in there is secret, and all the participants are sworn to secrecy.
Are your cases against the suspects so strong that they just decide to plead guilty and don't even want to go to court?
We've got strong cases. The FBI and the IRS have just done a terrific job investigating it, and we'll call a person in with his attorney and we say, this is what we've got. You know, we can either do it this way, and you can, in the typical case, plead guilty to one count, felony count, and cooperate with us, tell us everything you know, or we can go through an indictment and we'll charge you with anywhere from 10 to 60 counts and go to trial. And when they're confronted with that evidence, strong cases, generally they've been pleading and cooperating.
Russell says rarely a day goes by without a commissioner signing a guilty plea in this office, a practice he expects to continue indefinitely. Larry Audis, Action 4 at the Federal Building.
No, Ma.
You've heard of a tiger in your tank?
No, Ma.
Well, how about a lion in your backyard? A lion that eats chicken necks. What could be better? Well, Bill Phipps suggests 2 lions in your backyard that eat chicken necks.
Here, girl. Here. Now, quit it.
Phipps likes exotic animals. He got Numa and Sheba from a dealer, so they're not exactly born free. Sheba here was a Cincinnati Zoo reject. The cubs are getting mixed reviews from the neighbors. Kids love to look at the cubs from across the fence, but at least one neighbor worries they could be the next step up from fried chicken necks on the menu.
Everyone's gonna know he's there, and they will be warned in advance. So if they happen to get injured, it will be because they are where they don't belong. When they don't belong there.
The Phipps are moving to their boat in Florida soon. They'll use Numa as a watch lion, and soon Numa will be up to 350 pounds. But if anyone gets hurt, it won't be from inadequate warnings. Ted Brown, Action 4.
The Oklahoma State Fair had another good year in attendance and profits, and the fair board that runs the operation hopes it can do the same thing next year. However, October 15th is the deadline to cancel the contract between the fair board and Oklahoma City, and the council must make that decision next week. There are charges of the fair not reporting all the money it makes, and that policies are unfair. Putnam City Christian Church says it was forced to pay $6,000 more than necessary because the fair only allows booth operators to buy from select vendors. Roger Hembry operates the 4-H cafeteria at the fair for the church, and he feels better and more responsive management is needed to make the fair honest in its business dealings.
We don't say they're a total failure either. What we say is we can do better. There are many outside people who do these kind of jobs professionally, and if the city council would see fit to put in place a committee to put a board in that they have control over, then when problems come up, the city council could have a voice in answering these problems rather than continually invite people to come that have the answers but refuse to show up and defend the answers.
In the past, the city council has said the only problem with the state fair board is public relations. But Hembry says the problem is not public relations, it's policy. And he wants that policy changed, and he wants the state fair board out. He's hoping he can convince the city council to feel the same way at his Tuesday meeting. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the State Fairgrounds.
The statue of 4 jubilant cowboys on running horses was unveiled shortly before noon at the Cowboy Hall of Fame. It was Remington's dream to see the statue cast in bronze. That dream took almost 80 years to take form. 18-cent stamps featuring Remington's bronze are now available at the Hall. The Hall has become a U.S. post office for the commemorative postage stamp honoring Remington. In honor of this special event, no admission was charged to the public. Today was the first free day since the Hall opened in 1965.
The American cowboy is glamorized all around the world. He's the only American around the world that's not the ugly American. The Japanese love him, the German, the French, and here we have this totally liberated 4 cowboys going to town and just raise hell and throw their hats and shout and fire their guns because they're free.
Crakel said it took 1 year to cast the statue. It was done at a foundry in San Francisco by internationally known sculptor Franco Vianello. The statue is something Remington would have been proud of, and certainly something Oklahomans can be proud of. Ben McCain, Action 4 at the Cowboy Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's leaking out of that line.
Kidnapping suspect Don Corey will be coming back to Oklahoma City as the result of his extradition hearing about an hour ago here at the Butler County Courthouse in Greenville, Alabama. Corey was arrested Friday at the Greenville police station when he walked in asking for indigent help. There's also a federal fugitive charge against Corey, but officials indicate that charge may be dropped. There's still a question as to when Oklahoma City police detectives will be bringing Corey back to Oklahoma. Corey is extremely dependent on the drug Demerol and is requiring as many as 3 shots a day. Authorities are hopeful that when they are allowed to question the suspect, they'll have a better idea if Don Corey is connected with the disappearance of Charlotte Kinsey and Cinda Pallett of Oklahoma City.
According to the family of Donald Corey, the man accused of kidnapping Cinda Pallett and Charlotte Kinsey has been a loner and a carnival drifter for 15 years. His arrest Friday was not his first run-in with the law. Records show that 17 years ago he was sentenced to 3 years in connection with a case of rape. Well, even though he's not served time since then, he has been connected with 2 theft charges and with a runaway girl in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. One other consistency has developed over the years. Corey is addicted to the drug Demerol, and it was that addiction that allowed police to stay close behind Corey in their search. Corey left a trail of cities behind him, and many of them were hospitals where he acquired Demerol. From Oklahoma City, he apparently went to Memphis, Tennessee. From Memphis, he made his way to Jackson, Mississippi. Corey then progressed to Troy, Alabama, and finally to Greenville, where he was arrested on Friday. Demerol shares a lot of likenesses to morphine. The narcotic can leave its user feeling lightheaded, sedated, and euphoric. Corey apparently began using the drug as a painkiller for an ulcer. Now it has developed into a serious addiction. That's one of the dangers of Demerol.
Demerol is used as an analgesic for relief of pain. It's only use, clinical use. It's a very potent narcotic, high potential for addiction.
It was Corey's addiction to Demerol that kept him out in the open, and that's what the searchers were counting on. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
It's not unusual to see Wewoka school children playing instead of studying this week. While most students across the state are busy hitting the school books, Wewoka kids might be celebrating someone's birthday. The Wewoka school is shut down this week while authorities try to eradicate this pesky critter, the head louse. Wewoka students and teachers have been plagued with head lice ever since the semester began in August. 2 previous fumigation attempts have proven futile, so school officials ordered the school building closed for 9 days.
Live lice will die in 48 hours, and the eggs hatch anywhere from 4 to 14 days depending on the temperature. And by fogging the building yesterday and these number of days being out, with buildings should be completely lice-free.
Wewoka children will return to these halls next Monday. The school officials aren't taking any chances with another reinfestation. They say they'll inspect every student for possible head lice and nits before allowing them to re-enter school. And if any evidence of lice or nits are found, then they say they'll keep that student home for another 3 days. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Wewoka.
About 9:30 this morning in the 9000 block of Northridge Drive, 2 burglars came in and were surprised by the owner of the house, 32-year-old Russ Robison. But there was another surprise. Robison is a reserve officer on the War Acres Police Department, and he shot them both. One man stumbled outside and was pronounced dead later at Baptist Hospital. The other man stumbled outside too and tried to get away in a getaway car, but died at the scene. Police are looking for the identities of these men through fingerprints. Here's what an eyewitness saw.
And then I saw a man at the front of this home over here with a revolver in his hand, and another person trying to get into a car that was parked in the driveway. And the man fired shots at him, who knows how many, and then he got into the car and accelerated backwards, and the man fired again, and the car just started going around in circles, and that's when I ran and tried to find a phone to tell people to get the police.
Now this gun would be, of course, more for target practice rather than home protection or anything because of the long barrel. As you can tell on the barrel here, it says, before using, read the instructions.
It's too late to read the instructions on a gun if an intruder has broken into your home. But more and more people are buying handguns and learning how to use them as means of protection against would-be intruders. Gail Thomas is one of those people. She's had guns before, and this time she put careful consideration into her selection.
I'm buying it because it's an automatic. It's hard for my kids to operate, and it holds 10 shots. Well, with gun protection at home, you have to have everybody's cooperation in the gun, and if one they can operate, and it works.
Guns have become targets themselves in the past several years. People who buy and sell them feel the attacks are unwarranted. They say that while the need for protection is regrettable, it is their right. Gun distributors want to make sure they are used safely, whether they're for the field or the nightstand drawer.
We make sure that they understand how the gun operates. We can't teach them accuracy. Naturally, that's something they have to learn on the range with shooting. But knowing the nomenclature of how the gun operates is very important, and we don't let them get out the door if we sell one of them without going through that with them extensively.
Home protection proponents say their guns are like insurance policies. They hope they never have to use them, but knowing that they are there and knowing how to use them is a reassurance. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
This was the spillway at a lake 2 miles north of Coalgate, Oklahoma. Rain and lots of it has washed the spillway downstream and created a smaller lake. The Civil Defense and National Guard spent most of last night and part of this morning sandbagging one side of the spillway. The strong flow of water was slowly eroding the spillway's west side. 16 inches of rain Tuesday and another 4 inches last night has been too much for the spillway to handle and easing the pressure off the dam. Water is 2.5 feet from topping the dam now, and officials are doing all they can to keep sightseers away from the dam.
Oh, well, that's right. Up here on the gate to keep sightseers out because we found an inner tube down here. I don't know if somebody's going to try to shoot these rapids or not.
Okay, I will. The Corps of Engineers thinks the situation can be kept under control if they don't see any more rain for a while, but evacuation is being planned.
We have a contingency plan for evacuation. We figure possibly something between 200 250 people might have to be evacuated. What we are concerned about is how much more water we're going to get into the lake. We have several tributaries that feed this lake, and we don't know how much water is on upstream. So we get another 6 inches of rise in the lake, we're going to have to consider some fairly drastic measures.
The rain has stopped now in Coalgate, but there's another front moving in. And as the city manager said, 6 more inches and it will do it. The town will start out to evacuating people. Even though the rain has stopped, the water level keeps rising, which means somebody will have to keep an eye on the situation the entire night. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Coalgate.
Horses have always been good to Oklahoma. They're a major source of revenue for the state. Race horses are bred and raised here, and at Heritage Park, they are sold. Breeders, trainers, and buyers from across the country meet to show and see, to contemplate and to buy. And the horses go with price tags as low as $2,000 or $3,000 to a high, in one case this weekend, of $300,000. An all-time state record for a filly yearling. What separates a racehorse like Carrying On from the rest of the pack? In her case, it seems to be family.
I think the biggest thing here that's responsible for this filly is her breeding, and not only on her mother's side as well as her sire side. She's by EasyJet, and of course he's been the leading sire for 7 consecutive years with total earnings almost $12 million. But her mother was 4 times a world's champion, and she was the only filly in the sale that was a half-sister to a world's champion. And of course she's sired by a world's champion, so those things combined made her an outstanding individual.
In a couple of weeks, Carrying On will begin training in California. Then she won't be walking around a track to show, she'll be running around the track to win. A lot of people think she'll do well, and then her breeders and her trainers hope they can look at her with pride and say, "We made a winner." Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
The man accused of kidnapping 13-year-old Cinda and Charlotte Kinsey from the state fair has been set free from the Oklahoma County Jail. Don Corey released about 3 o'clock this afternoon. DA Bob Macy says there are two basic reasons for setting Corey free and dropping kidnapping charges. One, the investigation that continues into the case points to another suspect, one that looks like Corey. And two, Corey's alibi that he was not at the state fair when the girls turned up missing has been verified.
Corey had given us a detailed statement as to where he claimed to have been during the time the girls came up missing. Yesterday, a couple of Oklahoma City detectives and the public defender took Corey on that route. And there was enough verification of his alibi to establish the fact that he probably was not in the state of Oklahoma at the time the girls disappeared. We received additional information on the prime suspect, which more details as to his physical appearance, physical description, which convinces us that Corey's not the right man.
Macy says the new suspect looks like Corey in the face, is tall, slender, and was wearing glasses, a cowboy hat, and Western clothes. He says he has other information about that suspect, but he's going to have to withhold that until the investigation proceeds a little further. As for the girls, Macy says he talked to Corey about that, and Corey says they still might be with the carnival. Larry Audis, Action 4, County Courthouse.
I'm Ted Brown. The release of Don Michael Corey leaves the parents of the two missing girls even more confused than before. Perla Peterson, mother of Charlotte Kinsey, refuses to believe her daughter is a runaway, and because of witness accounts, believes whoever took the girls must bear a resemblance to trust the judgment of police, and thinks he may know more about the disappearances than he is telling.
I really can't explain why I feel the way I do, you know. I just know that he was, the boys did identify him by his picture, you know, so evidently this is an awful close identification there.
Not far from the Peterson home, the Pallett family is just as disappointed. Not that Corey was released, but that he had no clues to the girls' whereabouts. Cinda Pallett's father thinks the media devoted too much attention to Corey.
I think they lost the perspective, and that really the important thing is getting those two girls back, and has got all the press. And I just, that's upset me.
The Palletts are hoping this new photograph of their daughter will help someone identify Cinda, because her father says they are putting their trust in God and a concerned public to find her and bring her home. Ted Brown, Action 4.
This story begins where most TV shows end. One runs after nearly all TV movies. The message is simple. It warns the viewer that the unauthorized duplication of these movies is against the federal copyright laws.
This is our Mitsubishi Model 310. It's a new
Copyright infringement is the basic point of the appeals court ruling. Most people buy the machines so they can tape TV movies or specials for viewing at a more convenient time. But the High Court says that practice violates the rights of the big movie studios which produce the programs. If allowed to stand, the ruling could have a devastating impact on the booming home video market. But local retailers feel confident industry manufacturers will appeal the decision to the U.S. Supreme Court.
You know, it's a very large industry. It's growing by leaps and bounds, and they'll be right up there fighting it every length of the way, as well as the other side, I'm sure. Like I said, it'll be a Supreme Court decision sooner or later.
The court ruling could actually boost recorder sales. Buyers might flock to snap up the machines before tight restrictions are placed on their use. Scott Wallace, Action 4. You know, sometimes it seems like nobody drives 55 these days. Speeders use a variety of methods to try to outwit authorities. Use things like CB radios and radar detectors. If you're thinking about using a radar jammer, you better be warned. You might end up paying for a lot more than just a speeding ticket. This is the speeder's foe, a radar unit installed in a highway patrol cruiser. In the past, motorists have been allowed to use radar jammers to distort the microwave signals. That causes the police radar to give wildly false indications, either too high or too low. But beginning this week, anyone caught with a radar jammer in his car could be fined $200. A Highway Patrol spokesman says the new law will help troopers crack down on a special breed of speeder.
The radar jammer is much more expensive than a radar detector, so when you find a radar jammer, it's usually with somebody who is a professional driver and out on the roadway all the time. It's not your average motorist who possibly might have a radar detector in their vehicle.
The legislature hasn't taken away all of the speeders' weapons. Carlton says the new law doesn't affect the use of radar detectors or CB radios by drivers who insist on trying to outdraw the radar gun. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
The men were overcome by the chemical at the Hercules Energy Corporation at 4500 Newcastle in Oklahoma City. The employees assemble pumping units in this yard. A plastic line containing chlorine ruptured here at the Ashland Chemical plant. They make laundry bleach here. Ashland is located just across the street from Hercules. The wind was strong and the chemical drifted. Firemen and ambulances were called to the construction site. Some of the employees were given oxygen at the scene.
They lost approximately 200 gallons of chlorine in the air, and they just come over here in a vapor cloud and just kind of settled down on these guys who was out in the yard working. It's kind of a suffocant, really. It acts like, when you get it, it's kind of like you got pneumonia. It's just hard to breathe and makes you throw up and just makes you really sick.
8 men were rushed to South Community Hospital. All were treated and released. 9 others were taken to Hillcrest Hospital. All were released except Mark Damon. He was admitted for observation. Amcare ambulance driver Barry Griebel was also admitted for observation. Ben McCain, Action 4, Southwest Oklahoma City.
For years, Roland Ross taught industrial arts at Jackson Middle School. But 2 months ago, during a routine traffic stop, local police confiscated some allegedly obscene material from Ross's car. No criminal charges were filed against the teacher, but the Oklahoma City School Board voted last month to fire Ross from his teaching job. 2 weeks ago, the local teachers union filed a grievance against the school district. Grievance claimed that the firing of Roland Ross violated the contract between the American Federation of Teachers and the school district. But this week, the school board voted to not hear Ross's grievance.
The Oklahoma statutes are very explicit about that. To hold a grievance hearing would set up a conflict between the statutes and the local teacher contract. The Oklahoma statutes prevail.
The contract says that anytime you are disciplined, and termination is the highest level of discipline, that you, as an employee of the district, are entitled to go through the grievance procedure. They denied him the right to even go through that grievance procedure. An entire article on teachers' rights within our contract was totally left out as far as Roland Ross was concerned. And our executive board tonight said that that is not going to happen again. So we have voted unanimously that we will take this to court.
The teachers union may get some additional help with its legal action. The American Civil Liberties Union has expressed an interest in helping Ross get his job back. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
Marvin Novak of Canadian County says if it weren't for oil and gas revenue, many Oklahoma farmers wouldn't be surviving financially. Most farmers without this kind of revenue aren't going to make it, even if they do produce good crops. That's how the Chief Agricultural Loan Officer with the First National Bank in Oklahoma City sees it.
The only way they understand to make more money is to grow more crops. And when they have an excellent year, which we're having this year, corn, wheat, soybeans, the prices decline because we have so much in storage. Then they'll store it themselves, hoping prices get better, pay storage to the elevator, and pay interest to the banks. And this is, I think that the grain producer and the cattle producer this year is, you know, borderline bankrupt.
Gilmore also said on Action 4 AM today that high interest rates and the fact that most people involved in agriculture just aren't that well informed are the two main reasons for this terrible situation. Gilmore said he just doesn't have much hope for a lot of farmers and ranchers. Ben McCain, Action 4.
Witnesses say the blaze broke out in the front bedroom of this home about 10:30 this morning. Firefighters contained the flames to just 2 rooms.